Today we're going to have a little commentary on something that I saw. I think it was yesterday that it happened. I don't care when it happened. And I apologize in advance, but it never fails. It's no noise, and then as soon as I turn this thing on, you start hearing the cars going down the street next to me. So here's what happened. What happened was there's a senator by the name of Tom Cotton. And if you were here for the live stream yesterday, I didn't even know what part of Congress he belonged to. But I didn't want to sound as stupid as he did. So what I did was I went and looked it up. And you're seeing the search. And I found out that his name was Tom Cotton. He graduated from law school in Harvard. And eventually you're going to hear a little commentary on Harvard as well. But we're not going to get into that right now. Bottom line is this man is interviewing. Oh my God, I forgot the name. Hold on. Let me find the name of the person that he was interviewing real quick as we are talking. Because what happened was that he was interviewing the CEO of TikTok, right? And the CEO of TikTok, his name is, and I actually looked it up just so I wouldn't sound like an idiot. Shou Zi Chu. And if I'm saying it wrong, you can blame the person on this video right here because that is where I got, how do you say the name? The bottom line is that he's interrogating Mr. Shu. And instead of doing what any normal person will do, and let me reference back to 1987, when I left college, I was told that when I left Puerto Rico, I should say, I was told that whenever you go for a job interview, you should research the company that you're interviewing for, right? So that you know something about the company and you don't look like an idiot when you're interviewing. I would think that that is a good strategy for anybody that is interviewing or interrogating anybody. But sure enough, it looks like Mr. Cotton here did not bother to take the time to do any research on Mr. Chu, which I'm hoping I'm saying the name right, because as it turns out, he asked the question, and the question is, and I have it right here. The TikTok CEO says, I was born and raised in Singapore. I even served in their military. And Tom Cotton answers, so you're a Chinese communist. Got it. And the TikTok CEO goes, I'm from Singapore. And Tom Cotton again goes, so you're Chinese. Now, I'm not even going to get into the racial aspect of this. I'm just going to go into two things that I want to bring up. And this is true of any politician. I don't like politicians on either side. I just dislike a certain group less than I dislike the other one. And that's how I vote at this particular point in time. And this is going to make sense later on. So the thing about it is that I took the time to find out for you guys, because I already knew the answer to this, and you can check my Twitter. I posted the answer yesterday, and I recorded this morning. If you look, it took me all of 10 seconds or less to find out that Singapore belonged to the Republic of Singapore. You know, and for the Republic for which it stands, one nation under God, this is a republic. This country is a republic according to certain historical documents, okay? It's an independent country. It's been an independent country. I'm trying to remember if it was 1965 when they separated from the other country they were involved with, which you're seeing it also on the results of the search that I did. But they've never belonged to China or Japan. Here is the issue and the reality. And this is the second reason why I'm calling attention to this. A certain group of people has decided that China bad, Russia bad when it's convenient, and America good. And they have decided that they're going to build fear on the minds of the people that don't take the time to do research by finding everything that's wrong in China. Never mind the fact that there's a lot of goods and services that are provided to this country from China, and that they buy most of the shirts that you're wearing right now were made in China. And some of the furniture you buy is made in China. It doesn't matter. Because what these people want to do is create this fear about the unknown, about communist China. Okay? Number one. Number two, I don't know if you know this, but because of the level of ignorance that I see on social media all the time, I'm going to bring it up, and not the first time. But countries like Israel, or for that matter, the entire Jewish community, people, whether their religion is Judaism or they live here, but they're, you know what I'm trying to say, they're Jewish. It is mandatory for them to serve in the military. There are many countries where it's mandatory for you to serve in the military. But even if that wasn't true, do you really think that every single service member in the military is Republican just because Republicans claim that they protect the military? They don't, by the way. My husband was in the military when a Republican was president, and we didn't get any special treatment at all. So please spare me. It doesn't really matter if it's mandatory, or if you do it because you need a job, or if you decide to join the military because you don't see a future for yourself in college, or whatever the reason is. More than likely, you're going to find people from every religion or non-religion, from every political stance or non-political, from every kind of belief you can think of, economic, political, religion, education, whatever. You're going to find all kinds of people in the military no matter what country you go to. In fact, you're also going to find people who don't even believe in war serving in the military because they think that if they go on the inside, they can try to create change by joining the military. So the whole idea that because if he would have served the Chinese military, which, again, Singapore has nothing to do with China. But if he would have served in the Chinese military, that doesn't mean he's a communist. But you know why he said that? Because I refuse to believe that Tom Cotton is a moron. You know why he said that? Because his base will believe it. The funny part about this is, I don't know if you remember if it was last year or the year before, but this is not the first rodeo for the tech CEOs. A certain group of the Congress is always having these hearings because they want to do all these things about, you need to protect the children, you need to do this, you need to do that. Meanwhile, these are the same people that will not create a law to protect children from gun shootings. Because gun control is against the Second Amendment, which, by the way, did not say that you're supposed to have a right to a gun. The Second Amendment says that we have the right to have a well-armed militia. That doesn't mean you in your house. Yeah, back in those days, most everybody served in the military in some capacity. But as it developed into something else, the military is the military and you are you in your house. If you are serving in the military, then yeah, you're both. But the average person doesn't serve in the military and really doesn't need a gun. But even if that was the case, you could do a lot to minimize the damage that you're seeing now. But of course, we cannot restrain the First Amendment right of somebody to express themselves by having a gun, even if they're mentally incapable of doing it. Because no checks, remember? Many places have no checks for gun. And that is a problem. But sure enough, let's call the tech CEOs and question them on why children are being targeted on the internet, when the reality is that the reason why children are being targeted on the internet is because their parents are too lazy to keep an eye on what they're watching on social media, or having social media accounts to begin with. Now, I'm going to leave it there so you can marinate on that. I'm going to tell you why I brought up 1987. You see, in 1987, I was in college. I was moving from Puerto Rico to the United States because I was marrying into the... my husband was in the Navy and we were moving to Maryland, okay? Now, things that you should know about life back then. It's very different from what life is right now. One of the things that you had, well, we didn't have internet, let's start there. But one of the things that I remember distinctly from my days back in those days was that I really wanted to transfer to Boston because I wanted to go to Harvard University. Harvard University was the pinnacle for anybody that wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to be a lawyer, so I wanted to go to Harvard. Clearly, I did not go to law school, and I definitely did not go to Harvard. But as it stands right now, based on what I see today, I am very glad that I never made it, because it would be an embarrassment for me to be able to say that Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, and this man, Tom Cotton, they all went to Harvard Law School. They are all pretending not to know how the Constitution works. Most of them are even constitutional lawyers, which is the part that baffles the mind when you hear the verbal diarrhea that comes out of their mouth. Okay? That's not just for Republicans, it's just that those are the ones who come to mind, because they just come to mind easily because they're the ones that attack the Constitution the most. Okay? Now, having said that, you have to understand something else. Back in 1987, and it's really funny because now I hear my parents in my head going, and I'm thinking to myself, what? In 1987, there was a certain decorum that you expected out of the members of Congress. But in my case, both in Puerto Rico and in the United States. When I left Puerto Rico for good in 1987, the first time I left Puerto Rico, and I thought it was for good, you started seeing the change, okay? It was even worse when I came back to Puerto Rico, where there was no respect for any position of government, and you can see it in the melee that it has become my country's political system, okay? It's a disaster right now. I'm not going to get into it because this is not a Puerto Rico lesson. But what I want you to understand is that there is a certain behavior that you expected from members of Congress, both there and here. And the reason why I say there and here is because Puerto Rico's Constitution was basically verbatim copied from the American Constitution, to the point where they actually took the amendments, called them amendments, and wrote them as amendments. Instead of understanding that these are things that were, because this is a document that is breathing and growing, instead of just incorporating everything into a brand new document, no, they just translated the whole thing and made it into the Constitution of Puerto Rico. But anyway, going back to the story, when I got to the United States, there was a certain decorum in between the members of Congress. You would never hear somebody say something as vile as, well, her husband was going out or getting a date with the boy on the side, and that's why he got shot, and they're lying and all this other stuff. You would never hear that. You would never hear... The closest thing you would hear to a scandal was when Clinton was accused of having a situationship with a young intern. And by the way, back in those days, that was not considered... It is definitely... it would not necessarily fall on sexual harassment, because she was a willing participant. That has changed a lot, by the way. I personally think it would be sexual harassment, but neither here nor there. But it wasn't abuse of any type. It wasn't like, oh, well, he was grooming her, because she's an adult. For you to be an intern, you had to be over 18, and you were considered an adult at that point. She was in her 20s. So no, it was not grooming, okay? However, in my opinion, it was sexual harassment, because this is the most powerful man in the United States, and she was just an intern. That was the biggest scandal that you had. And in fact, Democrats were always the ones who were supposedly cheating. Now, we found out in the years since that that is not true, and that Republicans are even as worse than Democrats were. But that's neither here nor there, because they're both lousy. What I'm trying to say is, there was a level of respect for the position, not necessarily for the person holding the position, but for the position. We don't have that anymore. And thanks to Trump, we don't have that for the presidency either. Personally, I think it's to the detriment of the country. It also shows a deep level of lack of education, or lack of, I don't know how to call this, but manners. Let's call it manners. I hate that about the current crop of politicians. But what I hate even more is the fact that they're an embarrassment to every institution they ever attended. every place where they've ever been. Because for somebody who is tasked with helping run this country, be it at the level, at the legislature level, meaning Congress, or at the level of a president or whatever. For somebody that now doesn't know the difference between Singapore and China, let's say he didn't know. Let's say for a second he didn't know. Why are you helping run this country and write laws for this country if you don't know simple geography? I mean, again, it took me 10 seconds. And what you have to remember is that these politicians, when they're in Congress, they have access to laptop computers. They also have their phones with them. Because I don't know if you've seen them, but I've seen them plenty of times that they're interrogating people and looking on their damn phone. It would have taken him 8 seconds to find out that Singapore is independent of China, has always been independent of China. So let's say for a second that the point was not to hit the base with the, see, this is a communist, we shouldn't trust them. Let's take that out for a second and let's think about this for a second. If you're that big a moron, why are you writing laws that affect, what is it, 300 million Americans? That shouldn't be allowed. I'm sorry. I understand that this discriminates against certain people, then make it in more languages. But I think there should be a minimum of education required. And I don't mean necessarily that you went to college and have a bachelor's or a master's, because clearly it didn't help this guy. Mind you, I don't know if you noticed this on the bios that I just showed you, but the president of TikTok, the CEO of TikTok, went to Harvard. And considering that these guys are 5 years apart, there's a big possibility that they were in the same area at around the same time. More importantly, how are you not embarrassed? And this is why I talk about not having respect for the positions that they hold. How do you think it's more important to score one lousy win, which clearly he didn't, because if you saw the magazine I referenced, he's been embarrassed now, and people are very, there was a big backlash for him being so racist. But how are you not embarrassed to not have a minimal level of intelligence for you to know that Singapore and China are not the same thing? We can have that. If you didn't know, that's fine. If I don't know, that's fine. But this man is helping write the laws that run this country. This man went to Harvard Law School. This man claims to have incredible intelligence. And he's sitting in front of the cameras, in front of millions of people, saying that Singapore and China are the same thing. I'm going to leave you with that one because I'm still baffled by it. And on a side note, because I told you all, I don't care about being politically correct. And if I see something that don't look right, I'm going to say it. These two men are 5 years apart. The CEO of TikTok is 41 years old, and this man, Tom Cotton, is 46. Explain to me why Tom Cotton looks so much older than the CEO of TikTok. Could it have anything to do with the hate that he carries inside of him? Because clearly, if you're willing to be this ignorant to score points with your political party or with your base, you're carrying a deep level of hate for a certain group of people. And it shows. That's all for today. You have a wonderful day. And thanks for watching.